Greetings, everyone. Hope all of you are having an absolutely fantastic day. A couple of days ago, developers from Obsidian sat down on the Xbox podcast to provide more information regarding Avowed. A couple of new tidbits came out of that interview, so I thought it was worth doing a video and walking through some of the details with all of you. First and foremost, what I think is the biggest nugget to come out of this conversation is that there will be no classes in Avowed, which is something that I was a little bit concerned about when I provided my breakdown for their first Avowed revealed. Instead, it's going to be skill trees, and you'll be able to mix and match different abilities from the classes that you would typically see in Pillars of Eternity. And I'll admit, I'm a tad bit disappointed with that. I am a big fan of the classes in Pillars of Eternity. I feel like each of them are very, very unique, and it allows you to role play the game in a very different way. And so it's obvious Avowed is going to lose some of that, but at the same time, it's probably going to be a lot of fun being able to mix and match different abilities from 2, 3, or even 4 different classes. It's also kind of interesting to watch the evolution of the systems that Pillars of Eternity uses. In the first Pillars of Eternity, there was no multi-classing. You had to choose one class and you were stuck with that class the entire game. The second game allowed you to multi-class, but you had to multi-class right from the beginning of the game, and you could never change those two classes for your entire playthrough. And now it looks like we're getting Avowed, where it's just going to blow the whole thing out of the water and let you mix and match as you see fit. So interesting concept. We'll see how they're able to execute it. Hopefully, it should be a lot of fun. It was also mentioned that respecking will be available in the game, as it has been in the previous 2 Pillars of Eternity games as well. And I'm sure that's going to be very, very important, as players will have to experiment with the different combinations to find one that works well for them. You don't see it in the footage from the podcast or from their first reveal, but apparently you can fight with a Grimoire, which I absolutely plan to do once I pick up a wizard. I think being able to hold a book in one hand and then a wand in the other from that first person perspective would be really, really nice. I can't remember a game allowing me to do that before. And so watching the spells come out of the book and deal with enemies, I think that would be a ton of fun. Definitely looking forward to what some of the options are going to be. Some new footage was shown off during the podcast, and it really emphasized how important verticality is in Avowed. They say when you walk through these different areas, oftentimes there's multiple ways to reach a specific point or resolve a particular quest. And so coming from up high, or as you can see in the footage, even swimming to come down from below, will allow you to get a great angle on enemies in order for you to be able to attack them. I gotta admit, when I look at the footage, the enemy AI seems a bit concerning to me. Of course, we're early. They have more than half a year in order to be able to iron out any bugs or kinks that we might see. But it feels like there's a whole lot of enemies just standing around and waiting for the hero to attack them. And so I hope that in the full game, they're much more aggressive, and that once the fight kicks off, we're going to actually have a real challenge and the enemies will be a bit more responsive. And another interesting feature, Obsidian confirmed that environments and elements will have to be considered while you are playing. So whether or not you are cold or on fire, different elements will be able to interact with each other. For the life of me, I cannot remember if that was the case in previous Pillars games. I know for sure you could interact with different statuses, and depending upon a status that an enemy had, you could trigger a certain effect. But I don't remember if elements played with each other. And so it's interesting to see that here. I'm actually a big fan of when games let you do stuff like this. Mix oil with fire to make flames even stronger or spread larger, or mixing water with freezing abilities, things of that nature. I like it when games reward me for ingenuity and creativity. So looking forward to the different systems here and how they'll end up working out. Party members got a bit of attention during the conversation as well, and it appears that some party members will be connected to specific areas that you're walking around. They'll have history, and you'll be able to learn more about them by having them in your party. It was also confirmed that there are more party members than the two that have already been announced, but they have not said how many party members will get access to. So, this is an area that typically Obsidian has been very, very strong. They're known for creating interesting party members that are memorable. However, in my personal opinion, Pillars of Eternity 2 Deadfire was kind of a letdown in that regard. I don't feel like the list of party members that we received nearly matched up to even the first Pillars of Eternity game or some of the other games Obsidian has done. So it'll be interesting to see if Avowed is a step back in the right direction and the party members are more interesting and tightly roped into the story. That is an area where the Pillars games have been strong throughout. Having party members who kind of have roles directly in the story, and so you learn a lot more about what you're doing and the world in general just by having those characters in your party. So looks like Avowed is heading in the same direction. Really good to see. One of the things I also mentioned in my last Avowed video is concern regarding how party members would be used in combat. It's not clear at all how much control we're going to have on them. They talked about this a little bit during the podcast and said party members will be able to fill different roles, such as a tank or a healer, things of that nature. No information provided about how that actually works. It's also not clear if party members will be able to freely mix and match skills the same way you are able to. So I'm curious, if I get a party member who's supposed to be one way, can I just blow that build up and make them something completely different? Or am I kind of stuck on one particular path? It's going to be interesting to see how that all shakes out. And then they did bring up one final note that kind of addressed one of my concerns. The areas that they've showcased, there's a concern on my part that they're going to be barren, that we're going to just do a whole bunch of walking around, but there's really not going to be enough happening in these areas to justify the open world setting. Of course, we've seen developers who do this time and time again. And so they spoke a little bit about the variety of things that are happening in a particular area and why it's going to be so interesting for you to walk around in it. So they've mentioned before that they try to make the nearby areas different. So you might come into a desert area and then end up stepping into a lush greenery type area. They mentioned that there's going to be one spot where an archmage has completely taken over the area and you'll have to figure out how to deal with them. It just felt like there was a lot going on in a very, very small space. And that's really good to hear, because I think that's one of the things going to make or break this game. How much variety and activity do we have within these areas that we're traversing? And those are the main details that I picked up from looking at the podcast. I'll leave a link to it down below so you can watch it for yourself. It's about 25 minutes. It gives you some different footage that wasn't in the last showcase. So definitely recommend checking it out. And let me know down in the comments. Are you looking forward to Avowed? Is this a game you're excited about? Or is there something you specifically need to see or some hesitation you have that's preventing you from really getting excited for its release? I'm definitely looking forward to it. And I'm looking forward to sharing content on the game with all of you. See you all in the next video. Take care.